Hey guys, Ryan Gaze here. I'm the head of high performance and director of Ludus Sports Performance. Over my time in the WAFL and AFLW, I was fortunate enough to help many athletes return to sport after an injury. It gave me so much joy to see one of my athletes run back out onto the field and play the sport they love. Even better was to watch them dominate. I think I got so much joy out of that because I knew how much hard work and dedication they had put into their rehab program. And it was very rewarding to see that hard work pay off. The reason I believe so many of my athletes were able to successfully return to play after a serious injury was due to the integrated approach between physiotherapy and strength and conditioning. Unfortunately, not everyone gets the same care and support in their rehabilitation. Too often, I see professionals in both fields argue why such and such is better and why physios are soft and S&Cs do dumb exercises, and it goes on. Most of the time, both professionals are saying the same thing, just in a different way. It's super frustrating because at the end of the day, it's not about the S&C or physio. It's about the athlete and getting them back to sport. What's even more frustrating is when the athlete doesn't get to return to their sport because their rehab was so poor. My eyes were opened when I saw what the rehab model for athletes was like at the amateur and grassroots level. That same integration didn't seem to exist, and unfortunately, I was hearing so many stories of athletes not getting the appropriate care and support throughout their rehabilitation. Some of these athletes were never able to return to their sport, and that's how I ended up meeting them, to help them get back to their sport. The problem is that the current rehab model is broken. When an athlete gets injured, they are often told to go to ED or go and see a doctor. Now, that's appropriate if you think you've broken a bone or ruptured an organ. However, most sporting injuries are soft tissue. Things like hamstring strains, adductor pain like a tendinopathy, knee pain like a patella tendinopathy, ankle sprains, shoulder impingement, and even ACL tears. Unfortunately, the ED and doctors can't do that much for you outside of scans and immediate pain relief. So they should be referring you to a physiotherapist. Now, most athletes want to get back playing sport as quickly as possible, so they go and see a physio. The physio might take a quick history and poke and prod the injured area. They'll then give the athlete a diagnosis or send them off for more scans. If the athlete's lucky, they may even get a few exercises, which the physio tells them to do 3 times a day, every day at home, with a piece of cheap TheraBand. They charge them $90 for a 15-minute consult and tell the athlete to come back next week for a checkup and some more exercises. The athlete goes home and does the TheraBand exercises, but it's quite hard to do them 3 times a day, every day, because they're busy and they have other things going on in their life. After a week, they go back to the physio and get a few more exercises written down on a piece of paper. This is repeated a few more times until the physio thinks the athlete is ready to return to sport, which is usually just based on a textbook time frame. The athlete loves the great news and does as the physio says, so they go back to training. But something's not quite right. They feel really unfit, slow, and find it hard to keep up with their teammates. The athlete just thinks, well, I haven't trained or played for a while, so I expected to be a bit behind. I'll get my fitness back when I start playing again. The athlete gets through training and suits up for their first game back. But it's the same as training. They feel really unfit, slow, and find it hard to keep up with the opposition. Again, they convince themselves that this is normal and they'll get their match fitness back in a few games. Except they never do. In fact, it gets worse. They feel like they're falling even further behind. This is actually the best case scenario Worst case is that they re-injure themselves or do an even worse injury than what they did before. By this stage, they feel really disheartened because they're not sure why they can't keep up. They did all the exercises the physio told them to do. The physio said they were fine. So what happened? The problem with this model is that it doesn't work. You can't just focus on the injury by itself. You have to work on the whole body whilst building the injured area back up so that when the athlete does return to sport, they're in a better shape than before they got injured. It's not the athlete's fault though. The current physio model disincentivizes athletes to get a proper rehab program. What every athlete should have access to is a team and a facility which not only helps them overcome their injury, but also makes them a better athlete. The only way this can be achieved is through the integration of physiotherapy and strength and conditioning. Every athlete should have access to their physio multiple times per week and access to proper rehabilitation equipment that allows them to progressively overload and build resilience, not only in the injured area, but throughout the entire body. Every athlete should also have access to a world-class program that is easily accessible, easy to understand, and guided by a coach. Every athlete should also have access to proper training equipment and proper testing equipment to ensure they are appropriately prepared to return to sport, taking the guesswork out of it, being concrete that they are well and truly prepared. Every athlete should have access to a team of professionals that are invested in them and want to see them return to their sport. Now, you may be thinking, but that's only accessible for professional and semi-professional athletes. Well, that's not true, because that's exactly what we do here at Luda Sports Performance. We have an integrated team of physiotherapists and strength and conditioning coaches that are invested in our athletes returning back to their sport better than ever.